Okay, so let's finish off this chapter with section 6.5, solving linear inequalities by using multiplication and division. Same learning outcome as last section. We are going to explain and illustrate strategies to solve single variable linear inequalities. So we're going to do a lot of the stuff we've done before, except this time we're not just adding and subtracting, we will also be multiplying and dividing. Now, hopefully you remember before I talked to you about what happens when you multiply or divide by a negative number. And so I'm going to say beware of multiplying or dividing by a negative. So I've talked to you about that a little bit before, but here's where I'm going to go over it again. So it says, first of all, consider the inequality that negative 2 is less than 2. Okay, so here's negative 2. It's on the left side of 2, so of course it's less than. Okay, when you're on this side, you're greater. When you're on this side, you're less than. Okay, so then it says, what happens to an inequality when we multiply or divide each side by the same positive number? And the reason why we would be doing that is because in algebra, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So they're saying, all right, what if we had this negative 2 is less than 2, which it is, and then what if we multiplied both sides by negative 2? So if we multiplied by 2, multiplied by 2, we end up with negative 4 is less than 4, okay? Which is still true, right? Negative 4 is still less than 4. So if we multiply both sides by a positive number, we still have a true inequality, don't we? Okay? And same with division. Okay, so if we have negative 2 divided by 2, negative 2 less than 2, and we divide both sides by 2, we will have negative 1 is less than 1, which is still true, right? Negative 1 is still on the left of 1, so when we divide by the same number, our inequality will still be true. Okay, remember the rule is if we're dividing or multiplying by negative, these were both positives. So if we're multiplying or dividing by a positive, nothing changes. Okay, and that's what this says. So it says when each side of an inequality is multiplied or divided by the same positive number, the resulting inequality is still true. So multiplying or dividing by positive, nothing to worry about. But what if we have a negative number? Now stuff starts to go wrong. So what if we have negative 2 is less than 2? Negative 2 is less than 2. That's true. But now they're saying, all right, let's multiply each side by a negative value. Okay, in algebra, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So now on the left side, we have negative 2 times negative 2, which is 4. And we have 2 times negative 2, which is negative 4. Now, this is saying that 4 is less than negative 4, which is not true. Okay? So because this is an inequality, because we're talking about left side or right side, we have to watch out for multiplying or dividing by a negative number. Okay? 4 is not less than negative 4. However, 4 is greater than negative 4. Do you remember that rule? The rule is if you multiply or divide by a negative number, we have to switch the direction of the sign, or else the inequality won't be true. Okay? So because we multiplied by a negative number, we have to take the sign, which is a less than, and we have to switch it around to make it a greater than, or it's not going to be true. Okay? What about if we are dividing? So here we multiplied by a negative, here we're dividing. If we have negative 2 less than 2, which is true, if we divide both sides, by negative 2. If we divide both sides by the same number, but it's negative, now we have negative 2 divided by negative 2, which is 1. 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. Again, 1 is not less than negative 1. So, like it says at the bottom, for the inequality to be true, the sign has to be reversed. So hopefully you remember, hey, wait a second, I'm dividing by a negative value, When I divide by a negative value, I have to switch the direction of my sign. My sign has to go this way now so that my inequality will be true because 1 is greater than negative 1, not less than. Okay? So, have to remember that rule. When you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to switch the direction of the sign. Just make it face the other way. Okay, so, and then there's the property of inequalities. When each sign of an inequality is multiplied or divided by the same negative number, you have to reverse or switch the sign. Okay, so let's give it a try. So example number 1 says solve in each inequality and graph the solution. All right, so A, I have 4x less than negative 12. All right. So remember the whole point of algebra, here we go again, the whole point of algebra is to isolate the variable. How do you isolate the variable? You do the opposite of what's being done to it. Okay, so here's my variable x, it's being multiplied by 4. The opposite is dividing by 4. If you do it to one side, you do it to the other. The 4's cancel, leaving me an x less than negative 3. Okay, because negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. Now, do we have to switch the direction of the sign? Hopefully you're thinking, no, we don't, because I was dividing by a positive. The rule, or the thing we have to watch out for, is multiplying or dividing by a negative. So we're okay here because we were we were dividing by a negative. All right, what is the number line going to look like? The only number I care about is negative 3. Okay, x is less than negative 3. It's a less than sign. It's going to be an open circle because it's not going to include it. X is less than negative 3. I'm less than on the left-hand side. So highlighter or big pen, and we're talking about this side of the number line. So that's what the graph solution would look like. All right, B is negative 2c greater or equal to 8. Okay, got to get our variable by itself. How do you get the variable by itself? Do the opposite of what's being done to it. It's being multiplied by negative 2, so divide by negative 2. Now, hopefully you're going to, wait a second, I'm dividing by a negative value. So as soon as I divide by a negative or multiply by negative, I have to switch the direction of my sign in order for it to be true. So those cancel, leaving C. 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. So my answer is C is less than or equal to negative 4. Number line, put negative 4. It's a less than or equal, so it's closed circle. And then just like example A, C is less than. I am less than on the left-hand side. So again, I'm going to shade in. Come on, work with me. There we go. I'm going to shade in the left side. Okay, remember to pause. I am going a little bit faster, so if you need to pause so that you can get everything down, please do that. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to extend my page here. C is B over 2. What was that? B over 2 less than or equal to 3. Okay, here's my variable. Now this looks a little funny, doesn't it? But here's my variable. Now all you got to think of is, hey, how do I isolate my variable? What's happening to the unknown? It's being divided by 2. What's the opposite of dividing by 2? Multiplying by 2. Do it to one side, do it to the other. Okay, the rule is multiplying or dividing by a negative. I'm not dividing by negative, I'm multiplying, by positive. So I don't have to worry about changing the sign. Let's extend my page a little bit more, need a little bit more room. So I'm left with B less than or equal to 6, because 3 times 2 is 6. Number line, put on the number 6. Close circle. Third one that we have less than or equal to, so again, I'm on the left side, because this is where stuff is less than or equal to 6. Last one. V over negative 3 greater than 4. over negative 3 greater than 4. All right, there we go. Okay, let me switch my colors. All right, here's my variable v. V is what I need to isolate. It's the same as c. It's being divided. It's being divided by negative 3. Okay, so hopefully you remember, wait a second, I am dividing by a negative value, so I need to remember to switch my sign. So I have a negative 3 on the bottom. I'm going to put a negative 3 on the top so that I can cancel. If I do it there, I have to do it there. Okay, multiplying by negative, my sign gets switched. So I v now is less than negative 12. Number line with a negative 12 on there. Open circle, because it can't include. V is less than, so for the fourth time, I am on the left side. Okay? So, move on to the practice, or the check, sorry. Pause here, please, and try the check, and then let's come back and do them together. Okay. So number 1 says, state whether you would reverse the inequality sign to solve each inequality. The only time we reverse is when we multiply or divide by a negative. Okay, so what would we do to isolate m in this first example? Here's m. What would we do? It's being multiplied by negative 2, so we would divide by negative 2. Because we are multiplying or dividing by a negative, yes, we would reverse the sign. Okay, b is basically the same question. It's positive 2 this time though, so 2m less than or equal to 8. How would we isolate m? We would divide by 2. But 2 is not negative, so we would not reverse the sign. In c, we have y divided by negative 2. In order to get y by itself, we would multiply both sides by negative 2. We are multiplying by a negative, so yes, we would reverse the sign. Okay, number 2, it says go ahead, solve them and graph them. All right, so I have, same questions, but we're just going to go ahead and do them now. Okay, so like I said above, we're going to divide by negative 2 because m is being multiplied by negative 2. We are dividing by a negative value, so we need to switch the direction of the sign. Negative 2's cancel, leaving m. 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. So negative 4 is the only thing that I'm worried about on the number line. Notice I gave it an open circle because m is greater than negative 4. Okay, so this time we're greater than. Greater than is on the right. Here is where stuff is greater than negative 4. Okay, next one. Like I said, up here we're going to divide by 2 because m is being multiplied by 2. So we have m. This is not negative, so the sign stays as it is. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 is the only number I care about on the number line. Closed circle, because it's m is less than or equal to 4. Less than's on the left side. This is where stuff is less than 4. Last question. I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 2. So I have y by itself. Because I multiplied by negative, I'm switching the direction of the sign. Because 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 is the only thing I care about on the number line. It's going to be an open circle because it's not including. Y is less than negative 6. So one more time, we're on the left side. This is where stuff is less than negative 6. Hopefully you're starting to get the hang of this. Okay. Now we're going to do everything we've kind of done before. We're solving a multi-step inequality. So we're going to be adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing all within the same question. Multi-step meaning more than one. Okay, so we're going to solve the inequality 1. Oops, let's get out of the highlighter. It's funny. 1 minus 2 over 3x is greater than 3. All right, there's lots going on. This is a bit more complicated. So let's break it down to where's my variable. Remember, the whole point is to isolate the variable by getting rid of what's happening to it. So it's being multiplied by 2/3 and it's being subtracted from 1. So the 2/3 is being multiplied by the x, it's attached, so leave this and get rid of this 1. Now you might think that you got to think about what the sign is on the 1, okay? I know this negative is here, and this is where many mistakes happen, but this 1 is a positive 1. So to get rid of it, oh, I want to change colors. 1 sec. Get rid of there. It's a positive 1, so we're just going to subtract 1, okay? Subtract 1, subtract 1. Now, I haven't done anything. I haven't multiplied or divided by a negative number yet, so nothing changes on my sign. 3 minus 1 is 2. Now 1 minus 1 is gone, but this is where the mistake happens. This negative is attached to the 2/3. Okay, so that negative stays. That's where the mistakes happen. Okay, now this is complicated, isn't it? I have negative 2/3. I need to make this into a 1. Remember, if it was a 2x, I would just divide by 2 to make it a 1. Or if it was x over 3, I would multiply by 3 to make it a 1. Okay, so look at what I did. I divided by 2 and I multiplied by 3. Okay, I divided by 2 and I multiplied by 3. So I have 2/3. That's what I have. What happens if I multiply by 3 over 2? Okay, there's two ways to think about it. You could think, well, 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 over 6 is a 1. That's what we want. Or you might remember about canceling. 3's cancel, 2's cancel, leaving a 1. Okay, regardless of the way you think of it, that's the way that I can make this negative 2/3 go away. I'm going to multiply by negative 3 over 2. Okay, this negative takes care of that negative because negative times negative is positive. This 2 on the bottom takes care of this 2 on the top. This 3 on the top takes care of that 3 on the bottom. The only thing I have left is x. Okay? If I do it to this side, I have to do it to that side. Okay? Multiply here by negative 3 over 2. Multiply by here by negative 3 over 2. Don't forget, I'm multiplying by a negative value. Switch the direction of your sign. This 2 on the top is going to be taking care of that 2 on the bottom. The only thing I have left is a negative 3. Okay? Come and talk to me about this. If you're watching the video and you're like, what? Come and talk to me about it and I'll show it to you again. Okay, graph the solution. So, I need a number line. The only thing I need on my number line is negative 3. Open circle. Think to yourself, x has to be less than negative 3. This is where things are less than negative 3. So, give this one a try in the check. Pause, try it your best, and then come back and see if you got it. Okay, so let's give this a try. Now, this negative, it might bug you because look how that negative's right in the middle. Attach it to the top. I didn't do a very good job there. 1 sec. Attach that negative to the top. It's a negative 2/5, but give it to the top. Call it negative 2/5. F less than 4. Okay, here's my variable right here. I need to isolate that f. F is being multiplied by negative 2/5. I have to make negative 2/5 into 1. What can I multiply that negative 2/5 to make it a 1? Because then I just have f, right? Okay, so how do I get rid of that 5 on the bottom? I need a 5 on the top. How do I get rid of that 2 on the top? I need a 2 on the bottom. How do I get rid of that negative? This needs to be negative. Because negative times negative is positive. The 5's cancel, the 2's cancel. Okay, so because it's negative 2/5, I need to multiply by negative 5 over 2. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. Okay, I'm multiplying by a negative value. My sign changes direction. Now here, there's two ways to think of it. I have 4 times negative 5, which is negative 20 over 2, which gives me negative 10. But the way that I think about it is this 2 cancels this 4, leaving a 2. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Back up to my number line, open circle. on negative 10 because it's a greater than, and then my answer is F is greater than negative 10. So I am on the right side because this is where stuff is bigger than negative 10. Again, come and talk to me about that if you are still confused. That's a confusing concept. Okay? And that's it. We're done. So good luck on your quiz.